Hi guys, welcome to the second part of C Sharp New Features series of tutorials. In this video, we'll understand what is pattern matching, how many types of patterns supported in C Sharp, and what new functionality for patterns introduced in C Sharp 11 release. So, let's take a look at the types of patterns supported in C Sharp as of now. So, first one is declaration pattern. Second is type pattern. Third, constant pattern, relational pattern, logical pattern, then property pattern, positional pattern, where pattern, discard pattern, and the newly introduced list pattern. So let's take a look at each of these patterns one by one. Let's first take a look at what type of expression and statement support pattern matching. So in C Sharp, is expression, case expression, and case statements support pattern matching. Now, let's start with the first pattern, which is declaration pattern. So we have a snippet of code here. So let's see like what this code is doing. So we are basically initializing a value variable which has dynamic type. So I mean, most of you may know that dynamic is when we give the type as dynamic, that means that this variable can change type. So currently we are assigning a 1, but that means an integer to the value variable, but later we can change it to a string or to any type of object. So it can basically, that word dynamic itself means that it can change the type. So it's not like it's not a statically typed variable, but it is a dynamic variable where it can change the type at any given point of time. So, so in this statement, what we are doing is we are assigning a value 1 to this variable. That means the type of this value variable runtime type is integer, right? So here is that declaration statement. So we are using a is expression here. So what we are doing is we are comparing that whether if the value is integer, then initialize a variable I and put the value, whatever value is there, in this I variable, right? So currently we have assigned this variable to a value 1, right? So that means the runtime type of this value is integer, right? So when it compares, this expression would evaluate to true, and I would get initialized with a value 1, right? And then this this statement would get executed, console.writeLine, which would give you output 1. Now in the next line, what we are doing is we are initializing it to a string value, which is data. Now since it is a string value, when we assign this value the string value to value variable, this the runtime type of this variable would become a string, right? So now in the next line, when you compare the type of value with integer, it this is expression would return false, right? So this console statement would not get executed. Then in that case, it would go to else block and it would execute this statement, type not matching. We will get a output type not matching. I hope you get this one. Let's take a look at other patterns. Let's take a look at another example of declaration pattern. In this one, we are using a case expression. So here we are having a dynamic value as a parameter of this function, and this function is using a case expression. So based on the runtime value of the type, it is returning a string, right? So let's look at this console.writeLine statement. In this console.writeLine statement, we are calling this function with the value 1. So when you pass a value 1 to this function, the runtime type of this value variable would become integer, right? So then it would compare it with the types that we have here, right? So based on this integer runtime type, it would go to the second expression, right? And it would return it's an integer. So output would be it's an integer. Now in the second console.writeLine statement, we are passing a string value. So it would return it's a string. For the third one, it would return null. For the fourth one is a, so this underscore means that we are discarding. It's basically a default default statement. So if all other statements are not getting evaluated, then it would go by default to this one, and it would return not found, right? So output would be not found in this case. I hope you get declaration pattern now. So in case of any questions, ask me in the comment section. And now we will take a look at the next pattern.